You are listening to the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast on love, marriage, and personal development. Our purpose is to inspire and equip you with knowledge and skills to enable you have lasting and fulfilling relationships. Now your host, Joshua Mulgrew.
This is the Marriage Clinic podcast, a podcast about love, marriage, and your personal development. And my name is Dr. Joshua Mulgrew, or as I love to tell you, call me Uncle Josh. It's been a while, and today I'm coming to you with a very interesting and important topic. Recently in Ghana, and I know people watch from different places. Recently in Ghana, we've had a major situation that has shocked the nation about relationship abuse. And I'm going to do a series in response to this on abuse in relationships. And here I'm talking about premarital romantic relationships. As you know, this is our Ghana month, so help us celebrate Ghana. Even if you are not in Ghana, help us celebrate Ghana. So let's go. Share this. Tell a friend to watch this. Put this on your status. What you do, you liking, sharing, and telling people about this podcast puts it in front of more people. It also gives us more traction on social media. So I would ask you all the time, please help us by sharing this and recommending it to a friend. So I'm talking about abuse in relationships. Abuse in relationships. This week, I'll try to tell you what abuse in relationships is. Next week, we will talk about how to identify abuse in a relationship. And probably in the final 2 weeks, we'll talk about how to deal with abuse in a relationship. Great. So someone may ask, Uncle Josh, what is abuse in a relationship? Abuse in a relationship, and when I talk about a relationship here, I'm talking about anything before marriage. All the way from talking stage, as we like to call it, all the way from talking stage well into we are engaged and the family knows about us, up until you say I do. I'm talking about abuse throughout that spectrum. And abuse in a relationship is any behavior. Listen, any behavior that controls, manipulates, or harms a partner, making them feel afraid or powerless. So any kind of behavior, and sometimes when we talk about abuse, people think it's only men who abuse women. Women also abuse men. So any kind of behavior in a relationship that controls the partner, manipulates them, harms them, and makes them feel afraid or powerless, we consider as abuse in a relationship. All right? Now, a lot of the time, and I've used this African proverb several times, where sometimes when something is going wrong at the beginning, our elders say in tree, they'll say ukukurumponie, enya waswae, meaning this is even when, traditionally there's a load, you have to lift it up and then you put it on your head. So they say if while you are trying to lift it up, it's this heavy, then imagine how it's going to be on your head. In the same way, what you need to realize is that abuse in relationships escalates when you get married. So if he is throwing water in your face while you are dating, he will slap you when you are married. If she's telling you, I will stab you when you are dating, she'll pour oil on you when you are married. Abuse does not decrease in marriage, it escalates in marriage. That is why you need to be very careful about issues of abuse when we are dealing with premarital situations. Now, I'm going to talk to you about 6 major types of abuse we find in relationships. 6 major types of abuse we find in relationships. The first kind of abuse is very common. That's physical abuse. This is hitting, shoving, strangulation, destructive behavior, destruction of property. That is physical abuse. That's often very easy to see. She gets angry, she breaks your TV. He gets angry, he smashes your phone. She gets angry, she hits you, she bites you. He pours water in your face. He pushes you down, she pushes you down. That is what we call physical abuse. It is dangerous. If you're listening to me right now and you are in a relationship where your partner hits you, shoves you, tries to strangle you, I would tell you for a fact you are a victim of abuse, whether you are a man or a woman, and you need to take steps to get out of it. Then brings us to the second form of abuse, which is emotional or psychological abuse. Emotional or psychological abuse cannot be seen, and a lot of the time when it's happening in a relationship, people take it for granted. This is gaslighting. You saw him typing something on his phone. You read it. You come back to him and say, why were you sharing a message? Are you sure you saw me sharing that? Are you sure it wasn't a dream? No, I've never done that before. It is where they are trying to convince you that you didn't see what you saw, or what you are thinking is wrong, or you are overreacting. That's gaslighting, manipulation. You tell her you are going out with the boys, and then all of a sudden she calls you and says, I'm not sick, I need to go to the hospital, just because she wants to spend time with you. Or you say you have to go somewhere and she begins to offer intimacy and sex because she wants to control you. That is emotional and psychological abuse, where there's gaslighting, where there's manipulation, where there's verbal degradation. Some people like to break their partner's emotional stability down so that they can keep them. No one will love a woman like you. You haven't done anything with yourself in life, so I'm just even pitying you to be dating you. They abuse you emotionally to the point where you feel like you have been brought down. That's emotional abuse. Then there's verbal abuse. Constant criticism. He's always telling you what is wrong with you. She's always telling you what you are not doing right. Constant criticism, name calling. You are this, you are that. I regret doing this. You are just stupid. I wish you would learn to think for yourself. What kind of person do you think you are? Shut up and sit down. I'm only with you for your pretty face. When you begin to get that level of verbal abuse, it also is abuse. Don't take it for granted. Verbal abuse is abuse. So we said first there's physical abuse, then there's emotional abuse, then there's verbal abuse. Then it brings us to the third one, which you also may not recognize as abuse, and that's financial abuse. Financial abuse is when they try to use resources and money to control your behavior, either by rewarding you for doing what they like or taking away certain resources when they don't want you to do something. Now, mind you, I do not believe that one person must take care of the other person in a relationship. In marriage, yes, but in a relationship, that's a personal beef. I personally disagree with that. But where they begin to use money to control you. He slaps you around, you're getting upset, you say you want to leave the relationship, he buys an iPhone for you. That's financial abuse. You say you want to go somewhere, he says, if you don't go, I will not give you the money to go. Or if you stay, I will give you that. Where money is used for control, that is financial abuse. And a lot of the time in our setting, in this part of West Africa, it's the men that use it as a control over women. If you don't show up tonight, I'm not going to pay your rent at the end of the month. That's another story for another day. Then we come to sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is an interesting one. Coercion, pressuring for sex, sexual assault, and the use of sexual favors to manipulate situations. You understand me? Coercion, where one partner does not want to have sex and the other partner, and I'm talking about premarital, begins to put pressure. If you love me, you will sleep with me. If you love me, you would come to bed with me. Why are you not doing this with me? Send me a picture of this. Send me a picture of that. That is sexual abuse, when you are being pressured to do sexual things you are not comfortable with. So that brings us to sexual abuse. Then, and as you know, I'm a person of faith. So I'm bringing you to the last one, which is an interesting one. Spiritual abuse. It's a funny one, but spiritual abuse, where people use God and their perceived spirituality to control you in a relationship. God says, marry me. God says we should marry this year. if you leave me, you will not find someone who can do spiritual battle like the way I do spiritual battle for you. If you leave me, you are cursed. You will never find a woman like me. I was praying and God said, when actually it is your emotions that are coming. So whenever you are in a relationship and when you want to take a decision and the other person wants to force you to take a certain decision, they hammer you with God said. That begins to become spiritual abuse. So this is an introduction to abuse in relationships. I've explained what what abuse is, and we've talked about the six kinds of abuse you would find in a relationship, which is physical abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, financial abuse, sexual abuse, and spiritual abuse. Next week, we'll be back and we'll look at how to identify abuse properly. But from now, we're going to Ask Uncle Josh, where I will answer some of your questions. It's been a pleasure having you. Remember, this is the Marriage Clinic podcast. My name is Dr. Joshua Mogri. As I say, call me Uncle Josh. It's been a pleasure coming into your homes, into your phones, your radios, and wherever you are, bringing you information about relationships. God bless you. Take good care of yourself, and we'll be back with Ask Uncle Josh. Bye-bye. Okay, here we are. So, Ask Uncle Josh. A question came in on TikTok. I'm going to leave the person's name out of this. The person says, please, I need your advice. I met a young man a couple of weeks ago. He proposed to me and I accepted it, but I realized I am 18 years older than him. What's your opinion on this? Thank you. So I will give a generic response. Every relationship is different, but there's normally a problem or a challenge when the age gap between the couple is more than 3 years. If there's an 18-year gap, that means that first of all, you will not be able to connect on a cerebral level. First of all, women normally mature psychologically faster than men. It's a known fact. If you take a 25-year-old lady and a 25-year-old man, most of the time, the 25-year-old lady is more emotionally mature. So that you are going to face a number of challenges. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying you should, but you should go in with your eyes open. The first one is going to be the maturity level. The lady who is older than the man is going to think on a certain level, understand things on a certain level, and the boy may still be in his playboy phase. Second challenge you are going to have is going to be biological. A man is fertile from the time he hits puberty till he's well into his 80s. His peak period is between, I think, is it 25 to 35. A lady's peak fertility period is from the ages of, if I'm not wrong, I think it's 17 to 25. Up until 35, she's still good. So if there's an 18-year difference, what it means is that at the time he's going to want to have children, it may be past the prime of the woman. So we have that. Then there's also the social aspect of it. When you go out with him, people are going to ask questions like, hey, did you come out with your mother? Who is the old lady you are going with? And is she a cougar? Is she a MILF? So that social aspect. Then if, I don't know where you are living, if you live in Africa, you can be very certain that the families will push against it when it comes to the area of marriage. They will give a lot of push against it because most families do not want their sons to marry a woman that is far older than them. So what you may find out is that you go to marry, while you are negotiating that, you go to the house and find out that his mother could be your sister. There's a dynamic there. So if you are looking just to have fun, to play around, which I do not advise, to sow wild oats, fine, such a relationship may work. But if you are looking for the kind of relationships that we propose, a relationship that leads to marriage and is stable, an 18-year gap is too much for you to do, and I would advise you to back out of such a relationship. But once again, that's my personal opinion. You do you, but this is the advice we give. But remember that when it comes to advice, You are free to make your decisions, but you are not free from the consequence of your decisions. Take care from Uncle Josh. Bye-bye.